Okay, why does Patton split up the novel into 3 books?
I believe that Patton splits up the novel into 3 different books because it shows the different lives and situations each of these people live, like the blacks versus the whites, and what their viewpoints of that were.
I agree. It makes a very complex story when you have the contradiction between a very poor black man to a wealthy rich man. And it shows that they both have issues that they have to overcome in finding happiness and order in South Africa.
I think even the thought processes are different between the different styles of writing within each book. And I think he did that on purpose for emphasis.
I agree with what you said, Sophie, and going back to what Emily and Sydney said, it's interesting to see how they lived in the same town and they had the same lifestyle, yet it shows the contrast of their different points of views from their different races.
Describe how Patton's use of syntax. Explain the effect of Patton's syntactical style and how it contributes to the overall meaning of the novel.
Okay, so I thought that the syntax was overall pretty clear and simple, and I think this reflects Kumalu in his simple religious views, because he has a very straight moral compass. He always knows what is right, so the writing clearly displays that his faith never falters.
And it's not too educated, too. He doesn't seem to be, when he's in the town, he doesn't seem to be the most educated person there, and so the simplistic form, it relates to that.
I agree with that, how it seems uneducated almost, and when Patton writes, he tends to not use quotation marks, and he uses different phrases for things, like maybe it's like inverted word order, somewhat his phrases that he makes up, and also he uses a lot of biblical writing or according to like names and like references of towns and things. Just I feel like to reach a broader audience, maybe to more people who believe in is it Christianity? Yeah, that he writes about.
So going back on what they all said, I agree with them, and I think that he uses a like uneducated, just like flowing type of language to make you feel like you're actually there, like living in it, and not like an actual like book, just like sitting there reading it.
Okay, describe the tone of this poem. How are the motifs and themes from Cry the Beloved Country echoed in this poem? Remember that theme statements should not have personal.
I'd say it talks a lot about nature in this poem, and land, and it goes back to religion. It touches on everything, just like Cry the Beloved Country does, throughout the different points in the novel. But it's more like praising, like the theme, I guess it would be more of it's an uplifting tone, so it would be more of a praising the nature and God, and yes, praising.
That's exactly what I said, piggybacking, adding on to what you said. I noticed that he was very prideful, yet he seemed somewhat angry or ashamed towards the end of the poem. He mostly mentioned land and God, where this relates because in Cry the Beloved, pride in your land and like the love of land and the hills and the soil, that was one of the main focuses, and also believing in God. So that's what I saw in the poem.
Adding on to that, the people live their lives for God and protecting the land and trying to rebuild the land, and in the poem it talks about like their like appreciation for land almost. And the poem has like a prideful tone, just like how the book has a prideful tone for like God and the land.
I agree that there's a prideful tone, but I also thought there's a little bit of bitterness because both in the poem and the book, the people think that they deserve better. And a motif that shows up in both is the author contrasts the beautiful land to the ugly aggressors who are causing all of the conflict. And this just contributes to the overall theme that injustice is really unnatural and wrong and should be abolished at all costs.
For our discussion question, I chose, what does the valley represent? I think the landscape represents the basic goodness and beauty of Africa. The land can nourish and sustain a large number of people and give them happiness. The villagers injure the land because they have not been taught to protect it, because in reality they are all fighting for the same resources. not actually caring about the land.
Okay, yeah, I agree with what you said, the hardships and bouncing back into like the happy and the sad. It goes back and forth, and the
Yeah.
valley encapsulates all of that. So
Yeah, I also liked what you said about the natural order, because there really is a natural aspect to it, because all of these natives, they want to revert back to their tribe, but they can't really go back to the natural state of things because of all these new people who have come in and just morphed their society. So I think that the valleys really give you a look into the natural state of Africa before it was changed into what we see in the later parts of the novel.
And what you were saying, Sydney, about how the tribes want to go back to their old way of life and how things were more simple, but they can't now because of the people. I feel like the land reflects that, because now the land is dried out and it's like not as useful as it was before, and they feel like they can't get as many resources. So maybe that's a way of Patton showing how the land does reflect the people, how things are different now and how things are damaged and how they're ruined.
and how he says the soil, when the analogy with the soil and the people, like if the soil is dying, then the people can't survive.
Yeah.
So, okay.
All right,
And we're done.
good discussion.